What's up, guys? Welcome back. So as you can see in that little snippet of a video, the Bonamassa guitar, the original nut, 1960 bone nut, was the slots were extremely worn and the strings were starting to rest on the first fret. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take that nut out and I'm going to just build another one. You've seen me build them before, so I'm not going to put you through the process, but I wanted to talk a little bit about the importance of a bone nut and where your strings contact that break angle from where they contact to they continue on the fretboard. Most new Fenders, you'll get a composite nut. It's not really bone. It's somewhat plastic, and it has a great look and a great feel. But I think that there are a lot of guys out there who are pro players that when they have their guitars set up, they'll request a bone nut gets made for them. So I'm going to show you some examples over here. I'm dropping some different examples onto a piece of metal, and you're going to audibly hear the differences in the sound, the contact. But it does have an impact, and it does play a role on what the whole sound distribution does for the whole guitar. Also, keep in mind that, I think the selection of material used and the sound of the bone nut has a lot to do. You hear a lot of guys talk about when they get fret jobs and they say, oh yeah, you got to play the frets in because the guitar is too bright. I think a lot of that has to do, in my opinion, some guys may disagree and that's fine, but in my opinion, it has a lot to do with the material selection and the piece of material they're using to put in there, because that's the first contact point for the strings, you know what I mean? So I'm gonna drop some examples over here, and then we're gonna talk to Joe and get his insight on bone nuts. All right, so here we are with the selection I have. These are three different 7 1/4 radius nuts from Joe's bin. Joe pre-carves a bunch of these from, what kind of material do you use?
This is cowbone.
Cowbone. And this is a Tusk Tusk XL nut, which is kind of great for the guy on the road if he has, some damage. They're kind of pre-slotted. They're already 1/8 inch thick, and you can kind of work them in there if you're in a bind. And I'll show you what this one sounds like. And this is your current Fender. As you can see there, it isn't necessarily entirely plastic, but it's not bone, I can say that much. But we're gonna drop these now. So here's the Fender one. You hear the sound that makes. Joe, give me a second.
Oh, good.
So here's the first one going with the Fender. You can hear this. It's got that little acoustic, chimey characteristic. Really cool, And then you go with the Tusk one. So that gives you a crystalline kind of sound, very chimey. Now here is, you can see by the quality and the color of these, this is an extremely dense piece of bone here and here. This is one of Joe's pre-made. So that's got a thicker quality. I like that. I think this is the one I'm gonna go with. That's the one, right there. So as we're talking to Joe, he's currently shaping a neck for a Les Paul Jr., a custom build. Want to give us a quick insight about this? We're using a Mikasa ebony fingerboard.
Yes, quarter sword. This is slightly figured maple, big leaf maple.
This is the kind of flame that everybody talks about when they're buying these custom guitars, correct?
Yeah.
So you've always stressed the fact that the bone nut or the contact and the importance of the strings, a properly set up bone nut is crucial to guitars playing and tone.
Yes.
Can you give some insight into that?
Well, as far as the physical aspects of a bone is a very small little piece, but it plays a big part in the overall tone. We all want lower action, comfortable playing, durability, but tone is what we're aiming for, a great tone. And I have found that bone is the product I use. I know they have a lot of high-tech plastics, but I stick with bone.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of art to making a bone nut.
Yeah.
But once you got it, you're glad you did. It involves taking your time, slotting. Over slot, no good, too tight, it pinches it.
That's a lot of guys that are using a whammy bar. Can you explain that? If you have resistance, your guitar is going to be sharp.
Yes, it's going to be sharp. You'll have to play through it, get it back to tune. You don't want it sloppy though either. So it's a fine line to get that just right slot. Also, you don't want the slot to be any deeper than like half the distance, the thickness of the string. With the exception maybe E and B. If you do a lot of bending, you want to bury them to maybe the full thickness of the string.
So what you're saying there, so the top of the nut, half of that large, fatter string should be exposed.
Yes, no more than half the thickness of the string should be into the slot.
Okay.
Should be sitting up proud.
And you allow what 1/1000ths on each side. So if your low E is say a 52, you'll slot that to a 54.
Yeah, I would. And then if you find it's a little sloppy, then you get a file that's a little narrower to sort of pinch it just a bit, and then it'll work its way into what you want.
Those are some of those tricks, just the art to kind of make it work.
Right.
Now, you recently had a guitar kind of prove this theory that we're talking about, the break angle over the nut. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yes, I just had the other day, I had a Fender Telecaster. I fashioned a new nut on a bone. And the owner had strung it up, and he did not have enough turns on the post on the low E. And you would get this buzz, even an open buzz, and I knew it wasn't hitting the walls because it was sitting real proud of the nut. Turns out he only had about a turn. So we put another string, 3.5 turns, and that went away. So it's very important to get that downward angle on the post.
Entering the nut, so that you want that string to basically break up, to pitch up as it hits that nut and then cascade along.
Down, yes, you need that downward pressure. And a simple diagnostic tool, if you will, if you're having that problem, just press down on the backside of the string or nut, and then if it changes, well, then you know you just don't have enough downward break, and just get more turns on it and bring it down, and that should solve your problem.
Now, so you're a stickler. I mean, you're very, and I'm not saying this, we work together, you're very old school. How important, you got guys that'll spend, it's the pickups, it's the capacitors, it's got to be a nitro guitar. I've always pushed the fact that the setup can make you a better guitar player, and the nut comes right into play with that too, because it is extremely important in the setup.
It is. It all starts with the string on the nut. A nut is a lot more than just a piece of equipment that separates the string. It also dictates the angle, the break, the action itself, and it's all the little things add up to an outstanding guitar. It's a little of this, a little of that, and you try to do your best on all these little things, and the accumulative effect is you got a good playing guitar.
Excellent, excellent. And as always, guys, you want to reach out to Joe and maybe talk about a custom build. I'll put his info down below. So I'm going to get back to swapping this bone nut on this 1960 Strat. I'll give you some update photos during the process. But yeah, we're going to get to it. There's just a little info on how you can set your guitars up to play a little better for you. And you don't need to do a fret job to have the nut replaced. If you have a new guitar and you got somebody that knows what they're doing, I would advise having a true bone nut made, because the tone, the responsiveness, and the quality is second to none. I always go by it. I learned that from Joe, and I always do. About 105, huh, Joe?
I think so. I think it's about 105.
So weird how they've always just, I've always felt. All right, guys, so we got the nut finished. Joe kind of told me I was on my own on this one. I think I did pretty good. One thing I did adapt this time was the use of, use a little more patience, use all my tools properly, and I just took my time. And that's it. We left the nut slot a little high, only because, like I said, these are vintage frets. And if they do end up getting replaced, I'll probably be able to get another use out of this nut, considering I just made it. And, you know, I can use it on the next fret install. So now, the only other thing I really did was we used a little, what was the color?
Vintage amber water-based stain.
Yeah, we just put a little stain on the nut to make it kind of look like it's older. You know what I mean, as you can see there. And we set the action to
105, you like it high.
105 thousandths. And the guitars, it's very responsive. That's no amp, no nothing like that. So yeah, that's it. That's just some ways to maintain your guitars and get the most out of them. Nut installed there, and a little dab of super glue holding it in, and we're good. Another guitar ready to play. Strung up with 56, 36, 26, 17, 13, 10. I really like that setup right now. My hands are coming back into play. Everything's feeling pretty good. So yeah, that's it. Thanks, Joe, for letting me hang out in the shop. And
Anytime.
all right, we'll talk to you guys really soon. And again, I got Joe's info down below if you got any questions or you want to do a custom build. He's the guy to talk to. So thanks, guys. We'll talk soon. Later.